By the end of this message, you will understand why your life has been under such intense pressure, why resistance increased instead of easing, and why the fire didn't consume you, but refined you. So before we go any further, make a conscious choice right now. Stay present, stay open, stay until the end. This isn't about algorithms or numbers, it's about alignment. But there is something simple I ask you to do as an act of agreement. Like this message as a quiet yes in the spirit. Subscribe so you stay connected to what God is unfolding next. And comment something simple like, I receive, or I'm still standing. Not for me, but as a declaration that you did not quit, you did not collapse, and you did not miss this moment. Because chosen one, you are not here by accident. You're here because heaven marked this intersection in time. And what comes next only unfolds for those who stay, listen, and respond. Now take a breath, center your spirit, and let's continue. Intense pressure, how to handle the elevation coming, and we will seal this moment with an activation that alters your direction. Leaving halfway would be like walking out of surgery before the wound is closed. Don't abandon your destiny mid-process. Stay, receive, complete what God has already begun. Now let's talk about where you actually are. As you're listening, notice what your body's doing. There's a heaviness, not spiritual oppression, but physical pressure, right in the center of your chest, slightly left. It's the weight you've been carrying for weeks. You wake up in the morning and sigh before your feet even touch the floor. Not because you're lazy, not because you're unmotivated, because your soul is tired. Not tired in a way sleep can fix. You could rest for 12 hours and still feel drained, because while your body sleeps, your spirit has been lifting weight in the unseen that would have crushed most people. You've been sitting in what feels like a waiting room for months, staring at doors that won't open, checking your phone for messages that never arrive, asking the ceiling questions like, did I miss it? Did I fail? Why is heaven so quiet? You felt invisible. You walk into rooms and feel unseen. You speak, but your words disappear. You give, but nothing comes back. You help, but no one acknowledges it. And lately, around 3 a.m., a cold thought slips in. What if I imagined all of this? What if God forgot me? What if this pain means nothing? Pause, take a breath, and let it settle deep. That pressure in your chest is not depression, it is not anxiety, it is not weakness. In Hebrew, the word for glory is kavod, and it literally means weight. What you are feeling is not the weight of stress, it is the weight of glory settling onto your life. God does not place heavy cargo on fragile vessels. The pressure you feel is confirmation. You have been trusted with something significant. Now let's address the silence, because that's the part that hurts most. You've been faithful. You've remained clean when compromise was easier. You stayed loyal when walking away would have been justified. Yet heaven feels quiet. No dreams, no clarity, no audible reassurance. Just stillness. And the enemy has used that stillness to torment you, telling you God left, telling you you're disqualified, telling you it's over. But hear this clearly. This is not the silence of abandonment. This is the silence of amazement, like a master chess player making a move no one anticipated. The room goes silent. Everyone watches. No one speaks. Chosen one, you are that move. God is watching your timeline, your trauma, your losses, your financial cliff. And he is stunned that you're still praising, still kind, still choosing faith. You were supposed to collapse according to the enemy's data. You were supposed to self-destruct months ago, but instead you're here, listening to God's word. That's why the atmosphere is quiet. You have heaven's full attention. But here's where many chosen ones stumble. Right at the end, you believe God is impressed by your endurance. You think surviving was the test. So you brace yourself for more pain. You tense up, preparing to endure again. But that's not why God is stunned. Endurance is expected. Endurance is basic training. You are not being evaluated as a soldier. You are being revealed as royalty. This season was never about how much pain you could tolerate. God isn't amazed by your strength. He is astonished by a choice you made when you had every reason to destroy someone, and you didn't. That's the key. That's the secret. And when this finally settles in your spirit, that heavy weight will lift. You misunderstood the assignment. You thought this season was about surviving pain. So you clenched your jaw, swallowed your tears, wore strength like armor. You told yourself, just survive. But endurance drains the soul. Endurance is defensive. Endurance is just staying alive. Chosen one, hear this clearly. Endurance was never the final test. If this message spoke to you, don't scroll past this moment. Like this video as your agreement. Subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. Comment below and let me know you received this. What God started in you, He is about to finish. Endurance was never the destination. It was only the entry requirement. Anyone can tolerate pain when there's no alternative. A captive survives captivity because survival is mandatory, not because he is crowned. Enduring pressure doesn't make you royal. Now let's revisit a verse you've likely heard countless times, but almost never explored this way. James 1:12 declares, "Blessed is the one who remains steadfast under trial, because having been approved, that person will receive the crown of life." Most people stop at the word steadfast. They interpret it as simply hanging on, gritting teeth, refusing to quit. But the phrase having been approved comes from the Greek word dokimos. And listen closely, dokimos is not a survival word. It's a refining word. It's a term taken from metallurgy used for precious metals. It describes gold or silver placed into extreme heat until it liquefies, until everything impure rises to the surface and is removed, and what remains is certified as authentic. Dokimos doesn't mean you lived through the fire. It means the fire transformed you. It means what came out is now trustworthy. So if endurance was simply the heat, then what exactly was God burning away? What was the real examination? Here's the revelation that changes everything. The test was never about how tough you became. It was about how tender your heart stayed. What has heaven watching you in silence right now isn't your resilience, it's your mercy. More precisely, it's the fact that you showed mercy at the exact moment you had every right, every reason, and every opportunity to retaliate. Let's rewind to that moment. You know which one. That conversation, that message, that discovery. Your pulse spiked, your chest tightened. The proof was undeniable. The betrayal was undeniable. And a voice, loud, rational, human, rose up inside you saying, "End this. Expose them. Release the evidence. Return the damage." You had leverage. You had justification. You had ammunition. That wasn't a holy impulse. It was fury. It was the instinct to make them bleed the way you were bleeding. That's human law, equal pain for equal pain. But then something supernatural happened. You stopped. The fire surged through you, but you didn't unleash it. You held the weapon, whether it was information, words and screenshots, or timing, and you set it down. You erased the message. You walked away. You chose restraint when chaos was available. That moment, that split second, is what caused heaven to lean in. Because survival is human. But mercy while wounded, that's divine. Mercy with a knife still in your back is not natural behavior. That's God's nature activating inside a human frame. And in that decision, you prove something critical. You are not only capable of surviving pain, you are capable of handling authority. Because if you can't restrain yourself when you're weak, you can't be trusted with power when you're strong. The test was never whether you could absorb blows. It was whether you would strike back. And you passed. You preserved softness in a season engineered to turn you into stone. But I can sense your thoughts right now. The concern rising, the question forming. If I show mercy, won't they repeat it? If I don't retaliate, won't they win? Isn't this just making me vulnerable? It sounds dangerous. It sounds foolish. It sounds like weakness. But it is actually the highest form of power. Still, mercy without wisdom can destroy you. That's why you need a strategy. There is an ancient spiritual maneuver, one King David used, that allowed him to neutralize his enemy without ever swinging a sword. It's known as the Davidic paradox. And if you're stepping into elevation, you must understand it now. To grasp it, step with me into history. into 1 Samuel 24. Not as a reader, but as a participant, feel the damp stone, smell the stale cave air. You're hiding in the wilderness of En-Gedi. Your breath is shallow, your heart is pounding. You are anointed but hunted. Suddenly, light at the cave's entrance disappears. A figure steps in. It's Saul, the very man pursuing your death, and he's alone, unarmed, unaware. Your men whisper urgently, "God has delivered him into your hands." The logic sounds prophetic. Ending Saul would end the suffering instantly. No more running, no more fear, immediate promotion. Every instinct screams, "Act now." But David does something that silences heaven. He moves forward quietly, blade ready. Close enough to finish it, instead he cuts the edge of Saul's robe. That hem represented Saul's authority, his reputation, his position. David was saying, like, I could end you, I hold your future, but I choose restraint. This is the paradox. You don't receive the throne by killing the king. You receive it by sparing him. Power is not proven by destruction. It's proven by restraint in the presence of ability. So how does this apply to your life right now? The Davidic paradox moves in two stages: restrain and release. First, restrain. This is the hardest discipline you will ever master. The sword today isn't steel, it's digital, it's verbal, it's informational, it's the screenshot on your phone, the secret you know, the message you could send. The enemy wants you to swing, because if you do, you may win the moment, but lose the mantle. Restraint means you acknowledge the truth without weaponizing it. You cut the robe, not the throat. Then comes step 2, release. After David cut the robe, his conscience was pierced. And that's where the shift begins. Continue. Even that small act, cutting the fabric, pierced David's heart. It felt like too much. So he stepped out of the cave and called after Saul, saying in essence, "May the Lord decide between you and me. May he repay what you've done, but I will not raise my hand against you." That moment is called release. Release is when you deliberately hand the case file to heaven. You are saying, "God, I'm stepping down from the judge's chair so you can sit in it." And let me be clear, God is a far more precise judge than you will ever be. When you seek revenge, you can only damage someone's situation. But when God intervenes, he addresses the heart. He goes deeper than exposure. He deals with the soul. Let me show you how powerful this really is. I want to tell you about a chosen one. Let's call her Sarah. 6 months ago, Sarah had her own cave moment. She found messages on her husband's phone. Not suspicions, not assumptions, proof. The betrayal sliced through her like glass, and she had everything. Screenshots, names, timelines. She knew who the other woman was, where she worked, who she was married to. The voices around her sounded just like David's men. Expose it. Post it. Burn it down. They deserve it. She sat alone in her car, finger hovering over the screen. Every wounded part of her wanted justice now. But something checked her spirit. She remembered the paradox. She realized that public destruction might feel satisfying, but it would shut the door on redemption. So she restrained. She kept the evidence, but refused to turn it into a weapon. She confronted her husband privately. She cut the robe, but she didn't spill blood. She said, "I know what you did. I am deeply hurt, but I'm stepping back and letting God deal with this." What followed looked like weakness. 6 weeks of silence. 6 weeks where it seemed like nothing was happening. 6 weeks where people probably assumed she was being walked on. But then, release turned into intervention. Because she stepped out of the way, God stepped in. The weight she once carried shifted. That same kavod, that heavy glory, fell on her husband, but this time as conviction. No lectures, no public shame, no pressure. He couldn't sleep. He broke, alone in a hotel room not far from home. A true Damascus Road encounter. He didn't return defensive. He returned transformed. Today, he's the one leading prayer in their home. He's the one pursuing God. If she had destroyed him publicly, he would have hardened and run. Because she showed mercy, she made room for a miracle. She didn't win her husband back by fighting. She won by sparing. That is the authority you are holding right now. When you spare your enemy, the kingdom of darkness short circuits. You create empty space, and God rushes in to fill it. But I already know what's rising in your thoughts. You're thinking, that worked for David, that worked for Sarah, but my situation is different. If I show mercy, they won't repent. They'll reload. They'll see silence as weakness and come back harder. There's a whisper in your mind saying, if you forgive, you'll be used. If you don't fight back, you'll always be the victim. That fear, the fear of being a doormat, is the biggest wall between you and your breakthrough. We're not going to bypass it. We're not going to spiritualize it away. There's a tightening in your stomach right now because your survival instinct is screaming. It's saying, if I don't push back, I'm agreeing with the disrespect. If I stay quiet, I'm giving permission for this to happen again. And let me say this clearly. That fear doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. You have scars. You learned the hard way that when you dropped your guard before, people took advantage. So mercy feels dangerous, like handing a loaded weapon to someone who's already wounded you. But that fear is rooted in a deep misunderstanding that's been taught for generations. We've been told that humility equals passivity, that mercy equals softness, that strength requires aggression. But Jesus never taught that. Matthew 5:5 says, "Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth." When you hear meek, you probably imagine someone shrinking, apologizing, unable to defend themselves. That's why mercy repels you, because you think meek means weak. But the original word Jesus used changes everything. The Greek word is praus. In ancient military culture, praus wasn't used for cowards. It described a trained warrior. Picture a massive war horse, thousands of pounds of muscle, lethal power in its hooves and teeth. Untamed, it's chaos. But once trained, once it submits to the reins, that horse doesn't lose strength. It gains precision. That horse is praus. Meekness is not lack of power. Meekness is power under authority. So when God asks you to show mercy, He's not asking you to be harmless. He's acknowledging that you are dangerous. He knows you have the screenshot. He knows you have the words. He knows you could dismantle their image in minutes. That's what makes your restraint holy. A powerless creature can't show mercy. Only a lion can. When you restrain yourself, you're not saying, I'm weak. You're saying, I'm disciplined. That's not being a doormat. That's being royal. And now we arrive at the most important turning point of your journey. Ask yourself this. Why does it bother you so much if they think they won? Why does their smirk trigger you? Why does silence feel like defeat? It's because you think they are the audience. You've been living like your enemies are in the front row, trying to prove innocence, trying to demonstrate strength, reacting to their expressions. Their approval controls your emotions. But close your eyes for a moment, not physically, just mentally. Look past the front row, past the critics, past the betrayers. The lights come up, and the real audience is revealed. The Hebrews 12:1 says we are surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses. That's not poetry. That's reality. The language implies a packed stadium. And who's watching? David is there, leaning forward, watching you hold the knife. When you choose mercy, he's not disappointed. He's shouting, "That's a king." Joseph is there too. He knows betrayal by blood. He remembers the pit. When you refuse bitterness, he rises in applause because he recognizes his own spirit in you. And heaven is watching. Stephen is there too, the first martyr, the one who prayed for mercy while stones shattered his body. He's watching you bless those who wound you, and he's declaring, that's it. That's the power that overcomes the world. And at the center of it all, standing in authority at the right hand of the Father, is Jesus himself, the one who remained silent before Pilate, the one who said, "Father, forgive them," while nails were tearing through his flesh. He is your true audience, not your boss, not your ex, not the person who misrepresented you or dragged your name through the dirt. They are background characters, props on a stage designed to test who you really are. So why are you so consumed with the opinions of props? Why are you exhausting yourself trying to win debates with extras? The only gaze that matters is the director's. The only applause that counts comes from heaven. When this truth clicks, the snare breaks. Freedom rushes in. You can look at your enemy and smile, not because you agree with them, but because their approval no longer defines you. You can sit comfortably in silence, because within it you hear the thunder of approval from the cloud of witnesses. Chosen one, you're no longer performing for the world. You're living for an audience of one. And right now, that audience is leaning forward. He's seen your perseverance. He's seen the nights you barely made it through. But now he's waiting for the final movement, the one only a true child of God can execute. When you understand that God alone is watching, everything changes. You stop reacting impulsively and start moving strategically. You stop fighting like someone just trying to survive and begin operating like someone who carries authority. Heaven is waiting for 3 deliberate actions from you, 3 signals that announce you're ready for the transfer of power. I call this the Divine R protocol. This isn't a suggestion, it's a spiritual law. When these 3 moves are activated in order, they declare to heaven that you've graduated from survival into sovereignty. Memorize them, because the next attack will try to force you to do the opposite. Move 1. Sovereign silence. This is not silence rooted in fear. Fear stays quiet because it's intimidated. Sovereign silence remains quiet because it already knows the verdict. Look at Jesus before Pilate. Pilate demanded answers, flexed his authority, tried to provoke a response. Jesus said nothing. Why? Because a defendant argues. A king decrees. The moment you debate your accuser, you step down from the throne and into the dirt. You legitimize the accusation by responding to it. The next time someone twists the truth about you, attacks your character, or spreads a lie, seal your lips. No explanations, no clarifications, no defenses. Let the falsehood linger. When you refuse to defend yourself, you compel God to become your defense, and he has never lost a case. Move 2. The Table Psalm. 23 says God prepares a table in the presence of your enemies. Notice, the enemy isn't removed yet, but provision is placed right in front of them. Here's the strategy. You cannot fight and feast at the same time. If you abandon the table to engage the enemy, you starve yourself. If you remain seated and receive what God provides, your enemy is forced to watch you thrive. The most powerful response isn't destruction, it's undeniable progress. So lock in on your calling. Pour into your growth. Build what God gave you. Treat the enemy like furniture. You don't argue with furniture. You don't attack furniture. You eat. Move 3. The blessing. This is the hardest one, the final key, the nuclear option. Jesus said, "Bless those who curse you." That's not poetic. It's tactical. Curses operate on hatred. Blessings release love. Darkness cannot process light. Right now, picture the person who hurt you most. See their face? Instead of imagining punishment, visualize light surrounding them. Say quietly in your spirit, "I bless you, I release you, I remove myself from judgment." Feel that resistance in your body. That's your flesh losing control. When you bless them, you sever the cord that binds you to their dysfunction. Does this work in real life? Let me tell you about Michael. Michael is a high-level creative director who watches this channel. 8 months ago, a new manager arrived. Threatened, insecure, manipulative. First came exclusion, then credit theft, then full-on sabotage. One major project, 3 months of Michael's work, was presented to the CEO with the manager's name on it. Michael found out minutes before the meeting. He had receipts, emails, proof. He was ready to expose everything. But in the hallway, the spirit stopped him. Michael chose sovereign silence. He didn't storm the meeting. He didn't fire off an email. He went back to his desk. Then he stayed at the table, doubling down on excellence, knowing the manager couldn't sustain the vision. Then came the blessing. Every morning, Michael prayed for that manager, his healing, his family, his insecurity. It felt brutal at first, but he persisted. 3 weeks later, the CEO called Michael in. The CEO said, "Something stood out. Your manager couldn't explain the strategy. It was clear he didn't build it." Then he added, "But what impressed me most was you. You never complained. You just kept delivering." That same day, the manager was dismissed. Michael didn't expose him. The table did. And then came the promotion. Not restoration, elevation. A brand new role was created. Vice President of Strategy. 2 levels above the seat that tried to crush him. That's the divine R protocol. Silence. The table, the blessing, it shifts battles out of human logic and into divine jurisdiction. But hear this warning clearly. When you activate this, you light a flare in the spirit realm. Heaven sees you as ready. Hell marks you as a threat. The enemy will not retreat quietly. Within 40 days, strategic counterattacks will appear. Not random, but calculated. If you don't recognize them, you'll think you failed. The first usually comes within 24 hours. Why? Because darkness feeds on offense, bitterness, revenge. When you stop feeding it, it panics. A starving predator becomes aggressive. For the next 40 days, stay alert. There are 7 traps, but let me warn you about the 3 most lethal. Trap 1, victim bait, a sudden disrespect, a petty message, an unexpected jab. Don't bite. Trap 2, gossip release, the urge to explain your mercy to others. That leaks power. Keep it between you and God. Trap 3, spiritual pride, feeling superior, looking down on those who wronged you. That's the Pharisee trap, and it aborts destiny instantly. So how do you survive this phase? That's what comes next. Stay ready.